wrong button. That one then. It's been a long time since I've used this one. So now the Werkstatt is actually doing the Arpeggiator. This is the third attempt at mounting the CV connectors. So remember the first one, I took the expander, cut it in half, hot glued it to the end of the inside the case, and drilled holes in the top panel. So this has the original expander connections. For the second attempt, I just mounted sockets on the front panel. The advantage of these sockets is that they are TRS, so they have tip and ring available. So the bottom 7 are tip only because they're outputs, and the next 3 use both the tip and the ring. So because there's 6 basic inputs on the original Werkstatt, and I've got 2 spares which are going to be for MIDI in and audio out. So this is the third version. The sockets are mounted on a piece of bracket, which is then bolted to the side so it can be removed. It's better for this type of design that this bracket is attached to the case rather than to the front panel, because this is the original Werkstatt I built at Moogfest in 2014, and it has an Arduino underneath here, well, Arduino CPU underneath, and it has MIDI out and MIDI in. So when you turn the 4 these knobs, those 2 and those 2, these 4 knobs, you generate CV MIDI commands on the output, and obviously MIDI in takes over the keyboard. This one only has a 4 octave MIDI range because it doesn't have the same mods as my other MIDI conversions yet. I need to do that on this system. But it also has these extra input switches which can change modes that the microprocessor is doing, and it also has some LEDs, which are, again, these are driven by the same hardware that drives the keyboard matrix, so it's the same counter doing multiple duties. And just that they have, on the common side, it has a separate wire back to the microprocessor, so the microprocessor knows what the counter is and it can decide whether it wants to enable the LED on that counter value. So on this one I did wire up the audio out, which I'm currently wiring over to the noise input on the grandmother. I guess it's going through the grandmother. The MIDI in is going through the MIDI in socket, which goes through into the MIDI hardware underneath to the Arduino. So here I'm playing the so that's using the MIDI input here. So I can use the grandmother to generate an arpeggiator. So this Werkstatt on its own has a whole set of built-in functionality. So the top button of these 4 allows me to select a mode. So for instance, this is try again. been a long time since I've used this one. So now the Werkstatt is actually doing the Arpeggiator. And the rate is controlled through by selecting that and turning. Which again is one of the knobs being read by the microprocessor. So you can do this. It has other modes which I don't remember. It has either Octave Shift buttons. Yeah, so there you go. So again, this is the Werkstatt doing its own thing. So it treats the Midi in the same as it does with the front. These keys and Midi are the same as far as it's concerned. So on this one, you notice it is actually, the microprocessor is actually reading the keys and then sending the data, converted to basic to a Midi note, and then sending the Midi note through the other half of the Midi software to the D to A converter and using the +1, +2 octave where needed. So there we go. That's now the Midi is actually going through a Midi converter box. There are other things on that that are also driving on this system. But there we go. That's the basic completed unit now. I just need to make a front panel with the extra big holes for this part and put that on, and we'll be done, really. I'm really happy with that. So there we go. Let's just turn that off. Oops, wrong one. Now up-down mode for a moment. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that now. This is getting, third version is getting really easy to build. It should be repeatable now. So I'll do number 4 in a moment, because so this one hasn't been modified yet. So this will be number 4, I think. This one has the wiring for the external Midi that I used in the Trio. So the idea of the Trio, the hot wirings for the Midi for these type of devices where it doesn't have the Arduino will come out the back. And that'll give me a common way of attaching as many of these as I need together to form a polyphonic synthesizer.